I wanted to, or I want to, put some planters out along the seawall. And I was actually, I watched some videos on YouTube, but you know, I actually made a table, a turntable here out of an office chair and piece of plywood that's now warped and so on. And I was going to actually build it with sand and make a mold and, you know, whatever. But what I was in Home Depot the other day, and I happened to see these are a couple planters. This is a big plastic thing with a what is it? Kyra. Okay, 1.5 gallons. That's got to be bigger than that. Oh, Fitz plants 1.5 gallons. All right, because this is huge, and it has a built-in water saucer or whatever in there. That's not so important. But what I ended up doing is I taped the holes closed over there because I'm going to fill this up with cement. And this is another one that I bought. And I bought. Oh, I thought there was a label on it. Okay. So this was. This is, I think, made by the same people, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. It fits inside this bigger one, and it gives you about 1.5 inches, maybe a little bit more on the walls. As you go down, it gets a little thicker. Up here at the top, it's kind of thin, but that really doesn't matter because you've got no stress up here. So what I'm going to do is this was, I think, 17 high, and this was like 14 or 15 high. So in order to hold the bottom off of this and to create drainage holes, I took some PVC pipe and cut it off. This happens to be 1 inch, but you could use anything actually. And I cut these so that the rim would be slightly above the rim of the larger vessel. And then I just stuck these on here so that these sit in the bottom of the planter, in the center portion of the planter. And I just glued them on here so that they will hold this up off of here. This will all be cement. And that just sits down in here like that. And then I'll fill this portion here with rocks or something heavy so that this will hold this piece centered. And then I'm going to fill this with cement and then smooth off the top nicey, you know. And in order to make sure that I can then separate the two of them, this is just cooking spray. I've used this before on doing, like, here are the stepping stones that I made before, and I used roofing flashing to make these. You can make any shape you want, and then you spray them, and you know, you pull the thing away. It makes it very simple. So these were all made with 3 different pieces of roofing flashing, and you could make them. You can put them in any shape you want, and then you fill them with cement, and then you strip off the thing, and you can actually move the stones a little bit afterwards in order to get the right thing, and then you fill the portions between them with pea gravel. But anyway, I actually made a video of these 3 stones. So anyway, but that's the plan today. Is I want to make this, so I'm going to spray the inside of this larger vessel and the outside of the smaller vessel and the bottom with the spray so that I can separate this, and then I'm going to mix up cement and I'm going to pour it in here kind of loosey-goosey. It's going to be sloppy cement, and fill the planter, and then we'll see how it goes. And tomorrow I'll strip it off, and then we'll know if this works or not. Just to give you an indication, this planter cost $20, and this planter cost, I think, $12 or $13. So I have $30 in molds, quote molds, and then a bag of cement is currently around $6, just a little bit less than $6. So, and that's cement, not mortar, not any other mix, but it should be fine. So, and you can mix it a little wet. This doesn't have to have a lot of strength to it. And I'm not going to add any reinforcements in the center. That's another thing, is that in some instances you might want to fill it from the bottom up to, you know, 3 or 4 inches, and then put a piece of wire around inside, and then fill it some more and put another piece of wire around inside. I'm going to try it without that and see how that works. All right, so I'm going to go set up and we're going to fill this thing up. Can. The only thing about plastic is that it can be deformed a little bit, and chances are one wouldn't even see that, but I'm just saying. Okay. Sorry about all the construction stuff. I got all kinds of stuff going on. I'm putting in some walkways along the seawall and some plantings, and I have my inventory of bricks here and my tile saw and all that other crap. The other thing that I'll mention is that cement can be very hard on your skin. It tends to be very alkaline, like lye is maybe a good way of putting it. So it's important that you protect your hands, especially for people who are sensitive. Be certain that that's going to be at the bottom, otherwise this is all for naught. So I'm going to add this material. I'm wondering I should. going to say it's going to take at least one more bag and possibly a bag plus. So that's about $12 worth of cement material. A lot of force, man. All right, let's try pouring from the other side. Oof. And the shit is heavy. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay, so what's happening? Oops. What's happening is that this inner pot is wanting to act like a boat because it's much lighter than the cement which is surrounding it. So despite the fact that I have like 30 pounds of blocks here, and it still wants to float up. Okay, so this is something that we're learning. If you look carefully, I have probably 100 pounds worth of cement blocks in here. I have these in order to hold that stack centered. There's 1, 2, 3 around the outside. It's still pretty. I'm going to have to make some adjustments as I finish filling, but it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So you learn as you go. This, incidentally, is called a margin trowel. And it's flat on the end, which is nice. We want to, as we get this thing filled, we want to make sure that it's centered. I imagine that guys that build bridges and shit like that envision certain things being a certain way, and then when they actually put it together, the shit doesn't work out the way that they thought. Oh my god. And this is a simple thing. I mean, I thought this was going to be like child's play. Let me tell you something. It ain't. Although I did guess the cement usage pretty well here, because I have enough in order to finish this up, I think. Whoops. And also, cement mix, which turns into concrete, is made from Portland cement and sand, and sand and aggregate, which are small stones. And then what you see coming up to the surface here is the Portland cement. They sometimes refer to as the cream, because you don't want your aggregate to show up there. So you work until you have a smooth finish. And that is that. We're done. It's still oval. I'll give you the bird's eye view here. You can see from above all the bricks that we have. I got 100 pounds of bricks in there. You can see how it's fatter over here and fatter over there. I was hoping that this would pull it in more. It did pull it in some, but not enough. And then it's thinner over here and thinner over here. So it's going to be oval. But that's what you got. So we'll see how easily it comes out and how well it stands up as a planter. This may not be the way to go. I don't know. It was an experiment. Okay. So I'm going to let this sit overnight. Tomorrow I'm going to separate it out. In the meantime, I got to clean up my cement mixer and my bucket and my tools, and that will be the end of that. So you'll be back in a few minutes, which will be actually at least 14-16 hours for me. So all right, signing off. Peace, love. Bye. This is turning into a video, but for everybody's education, including my own, of what not to do in trying to make a cement planter by molding it this way. And I don't know why, but I got something about this time of the year. I've got like 1 million of some kind of fly, some kind of bug flying around here. Anyway, so what I had done is I bought this planter at Home Depot, plastic planter with a built-in tray. and they were together. I taped over the holes in there, and then I sprayed the interior with vegetable spray, you know, the cooking spray on the inside of this. And then I found this one which fit the interior of this pretty well, and it gave me 2 inches or so worth of maybe 3 inches, 2.5 to 3 inches of exterior wall for what would be my planter. And that came with this, and I actually took 3 pieces of PVC pipe and I hot glued them onto that location there, which was on the bottom of this one. Oops, other way around, obviously. It was that, so that it would hold that off of there, and I thought, hey, I'm great. So then I poured what ended up to be about 2.5 bags of cement, 2.5 80-pound bags of cement. 80 and 80 is 160, and 40 is 200 pounds. So this ultimately is 200 pounds, but that's not the biggest problem. Okay, cement will take on its shape. To get this out, I had to, you know, after the thing set the following day, I didn't take pictures of that, but I got up underneath this edge and I, you know, wiggled it and, you know, worked it around, and finally the thing popped out. Of course, when it popped out, it also took this tray, which was attached to the bottom of it, and it broke off where I had hot glued, and you can see there the 3 locations. And they ended up, they're actually in the bottom of this. I'm going to knock them out. You know, I'll show you what's going on next. The big issue was getting that, which weighs 200 pounds, out of that. So keep in mind that I had filled this all the way up to the brim, except for maybe about a, I don't know, maybe a 1/8 of an inch tops all the way around. And the other thing was that, first of all, the cement was liquid, and this wanted to float like a boat. The buoyancy wanted to come up, you know, to have this thing floating on top of the surface of the cement. Obviously, I didn't want that. I wanted to maintain the thing, so I had this whole stack of bricks, plus I had some other bricks from my paver project over there. I had those on top of it too, so I had several hundred pounds of bricks on top of this, holding this down in place. So that's not something that you want to do when you have a liquid. This thing wanted to float like a boat. All right, so that's the second problem when, you know, putting it all together. The other thing is that cement is very heavy, even in its wet form. Obviously, it's still heavy in its solid form, but it wanted to push the sides out. So I ended up taking a ratchet strap and putting it around the outside, trying to hold the thing into its round shape. But ultimately, and I'm going to turn it over in a second, and I'll show you, you know, what our final product is after I finish talking about this. But I had thin walls on one side and thick walls on the other side. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the plants don't care, and from the outside, this thing actually doesn't look too bad. But you can see how it's kind of ovaled out on this side like that. So anyway, it's not a perfect thing. And the other thing is then to get it out of this plastic pot mold was very, very difficult. So ultimately I decided, I took a spade or a trowel, and I slid it down between you can actually see some of the places that I shoved the trowel down in to try to separate the cement up here at the top, figuring that the more footage that I could get released, the better off I would be. And of course it turned out to be the case. But then I said, this is crazy, because I'm not going to lift 200 pounds out of this thing, so I've got to turn it upside down and try to lift this off of that. And ultimately that's what I did. So I took the piece of plywood that I had done this whole business on, turned it upside down, turned it underneath, and then I got 3 pry bars underneath here, and wiggle for a half an hour till I finally, the water tray came off the bottom, which was good. And then I could see down in here, and it would give it some air space also, so that, you know, air could enter this way and help to release. And finally it came loose. Okay, so here's the final product, but here's the problem. You can see that the weight of the cement bowed this out. So what I'm going to do I can either add to this by taking mortar and making some pedestals to hold this whole thing up, or I can grind this surface here so that it's lower, the center, and use these as spots. But I think the first thing, by actually building up some feeties on here, is the way to go. So these are I won't be doing this again. I'm just showing people for the problems that I ran into, so that you know not to do what I have done. I'm not going to make this another way. I mean another one like this in the same way. So this all came about because I saw a video of there's a product called Hypertufa, which I had never heard of before. It was apparently popular back in the 90s, and I guess it's maybe coming back. But what it is you take a mixture of Portland cement, peat, which is an organic, mixture of organic product, peat moss or peat, could be any number of different products, and perlite, which is a volcanic product, or vermiculite, both of which they use in gardening to lighten soil. You add it in. Anyway, and then you mix it up to a point where it's like peanut butter, or a little bit, that consistency, so that it's moldable. And then you pack the inside. You take a form like this and you pack it to the inside until you get the thing just a little bit fatter than you need to have it. And then you put some sort of a mold to the end. And that's why I was doing all this. But I thought, hey, why do I need to do all that when I can just pour the cement? Well, that's why you can't just pour the cement. If you have the Hypertufa, which you've mixed from a solid, and you pack the sides individually, the inside mold is not going to float up, because you're solid against solid, so there is no buoyancy involved. Here I had wet cement, which was what that was all about. So I'm gonna shut you off for a second. I'm going to turn over this mold so that you can see what the final product looks like, and then of course I'm going to end up having to do retrofitting of some sort of feeties on the bottom of this thing in order to make it a usable product. And of course, and then there's going to be drain holes also, which are, I'll show you the pipes when we turn it over. You'll be able to see. I can knock those through, because this has got to be very thin. The cement here has to be very thin. I can actually drill it through. I have cement drills too, but I'm just saying. Okay, so let me give me a minute. I'm going to turn you over, and we'll take another look. Okay, so here's the rest of the story. Now, this thing is 200 pounds. I mean, it's no light boy, I'll tell you. All right, so this is what I was talking about, the thin and the thick. You can see, to try to hold that mold, which is plastic and wants to move, I mean, you can see how, whatever, and having all the cement, which weighs 200 pounds, pushing against it, to try to hold it, to get it center to center, is like, whew, not very easy at all. So these sides are thicker, so I have an ellipse here, sort of, and these sides are thinner, but that's the final product. And then the 3 pieces of plastic pipe that I used as spacers, so that I would have a known thickness on the bottom, or here, and here, they broke off of the bottom of the inner mold, the other pot. I can pull these pieces out of here. It really doesn't matter one way or the other. And I can also poke these through to the other side for the water drainage for this thing. But that's what you have. What I've learned is I don't want to do this again anytime soon. But it is a planter, it is usable, and so on and so forth. The other thing that I'll mention to you about cement in general is, you see, cement, when you're mixing cement, it traps a lot of air. And even though I wrapped on the sides of the mold, and that allows air bubbles to rise to the surface, you can still see the porosity from trapped air inside that mold. It did come out nice and smooth though, I mean, and a bigger problem here to the inside, some voids, but I mean, it doesn't change the strength at all. This thing, is built like a tank. So anyway, what I'm going to end up doing is putting feeties on the bottom of this thing, little feet. I'll make out of mortar probably, and there's because there is a dip in the bottom of each of those things where there was a pocket, I can kind of key them to the bottom of this. Otherwise, you know, wet cement doesn't hold well to dry cement very well. Usually you want to pour it monolith, one single pouring. And so if you're going to make something with feet on it, you generally want the feet to be part of the original mold. And you know, I didn't have the opportunity. Plus I wasn't figuring that the bottom was going to be concave like that anyway. So you know, that's what I'm faced with anyway. But this is the end of it. You know, eventually I'll fill this up with soil and I'll plant it someplace. The idea was I wanted to have, you know, planters along the seawall as I'm, you know, developing my ideal yard over here. I'm going to have a, you know, beachy scene with a fire pit and so on and so forth. But anyway, all my equipment's still out here from putting in those walkways recently. And this was an experiment which unfortunately is only semi-successful. All right, well anyway, so I learned something, and if you're watching, this is what not to do. So I hope you liked it. Like, subscribe, comment. I like to hear your comments anyway. It's all good, you know. Peace, love, out.